Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Mr. Wizard's Workshop. The subject is the Eisenhower Matrix. So welcome to this live workshop, broadcast to you from Wisconsin's Driftless area, which is pretty darn close to being the Shire. So each week we bring you bite-sized, instantly actionable training designed to help you significantly improve your productivity. So today's episode is the Eisenhower Matrix. I'm going to explain what it is, what it means, how to apply the concept, the strategy to significantly increase your productivity. I'm also going to give you an action item to help you get clear on how you can work with it. And I'll actually work you through the details of that. So that actionable item that I just mentioned is for you to take, we'll say 8 to 10 of the tasks from your to-do list. I assume you have one. Just about everybody does, even if it's a collection of stickies all over your computer, and run them through the Eisenhower's matrix, and then refine your to-do list and daily calendar based on the results. And I'm going to tell you specifically what actions to take depending on which quadrant in the matrix a particular task lands in. So as usual, if you get some benefit from this video, you enjoy it and find it helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you're watching the saved recording and have any follow-up questions, post it in YouTube and I will try to answer. I always respond to posts. If you know anyone that would enjoy and benefit from this video, then please share the link with them. So the backstory about the Eisenhower Matrix. So named after Dwight D. Eisenhower, American military officer who served as the 34th president of the United States. Before being elected as president, Eisenhower had a long and very impressive career in the military. He rose to the rank General of the Army, i.e., he was a 5-star general, one of only 5 men in history who achieved that rank. Obviously, he was a very busy man with a huge number of responsibilities and demands on his time and attention. So he determined that to be successful, he and the people that reported to him had to do the things that were both urgent and important. To frame it up another way, to focus their time and energy on the most important thing. Thus, the Eisenhower Matrix, which is also known as the Eisenhower Square, Eisenhower Box, was born. In 1989, Stephen Covey published The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which was a highly successful book. I think to date, the book sold more than 40 million copies worldwide, and the audio version of the book became the first non-fiction audio book in publishing history to sell more than 1 million copies. So one of the 7 habits, habit number 3, is put first things first. Here's a quote from Covey that kind of summarizes the concept for habit 3, which is, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priority. And Covey recommended the Eisenhower Matrix as the means to accomplish this, thus introducing millions of people to the strategy and kind of releasing it out into the world, as it were. I'd like to pause now for a brief commercial message. So the sponsor for this week's show are the good folks who own and operate the Bucklebury Ferry. I love saying that. Bucklebury Ferry.
Sam and I must get debris. Right. Bucklebury Ferry. Brandywine Bridge. 20 miles.
Whether you're crossing the Brandywine River to escape black riders or simply heading to Bree for a few or several pints at the Prancing Pony Inn, cross the river in style with the Bucklebury Ferry. Remember our motto, it beats the hell out of swimming. So what is the Matrix? It is simply a way to organize tasks by urgency and importance so that you can effectively prioritize your most important work. So you can see there's across the top 2 categories, urgent and not urgent. Down the left-hand side, 2 additional categories, important and not important. So I'm going to walk you through it. I have on my little poster board, and I'm going to try out my new little thing I figured out of having a second camera. So let me stop sharing that and start sharing. Got my little camera. I'm going to move it over to my board here. So I have done in the past, episode 2, a basic overview and walk through the Eisenhower Matrix. But I want to do it again for a couple of reasons. One is I think it's really important. And 2, I have some additional perspective. I'm going to tie this back. Like at the time I did the first one, I didn't know the history or didn't remember about the 7 habits of highly successful people. And I'm also going to tie some of the principles here back to one of the really useful chapters in the book, The One Thing. All right, so here's the definition of prioritization: to organize, quotes around things, so that the most important thing is done or dealt with first. That's the basic definition of prioritization. And then you can see here my sloppily drawn box, the quadrants. So for each of these quadrants, there's a particular tactic that you want to apply. Some people call it the 4 Ds. So if something is important and urgent, do it. Give it a deadline, and then identify what is the very next physical action you need to take to make progress or get it completed. In the category of important but not urgent, it's decide. That is, schedule a time to do it and then block it out, in your daily calendar. So if something is not important but urgent, then that's likely something that you can delegate. You at least ask yourself the question, who can do this for me? Anything that falls into the not important, not urgent quadrant, the D is delete. That is, don't do it. Don't waste your time and energy working on things that are not urgent and not important. Now, unfortunately, many people spend most of their time in this quadrant. There's always a long list of things you could do, check my emails, blah, 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 that make you feel like you're busy and you can check off on your list, but are not urgent or not important. And last on this is a quote from, I believe, Eisenhower, which I think he paraphrased someone else, but what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. So I'm going to switch back over now to my main video camera. That was kind of fun, although I do need to hone my skills with that a little bit. Oh, and I have a new microphone and a little screen here too, to try to help improve the quality of my recording. So we just did the walkthrough. So now I'm going to tie this back to a chapter in the book, The One Thing. Chapter 4 talks about one of the 6 big lies that can stand between you and success. This ties back. They don't specifically mention the Eisenhower Matrix, but the principle and the concepts tie directly back to it. And you can use this strategy to get you to the point where you are doing what they recommend to do in this chapter. So the big lie in this chapter is everything matters equally. So when everything feels urgent and important, you just have a long to-do list, or even worse, you're just completely event driven by whatever randomly pops up in your life. I think they use examples like pinball in a pinball machine where you're just bouncing around. So when everything feels urgent and important, everything seems equal. While we can be very active and busy, it doesn't actually move us closer to success. Activity and productivity are 2 very different things. So the summary from chapter 4, and again, like my last 3 or 4 episodes, I am going to recommend that you read the book, The One Thing, and I'll put a link to the book in Amazon in my description, along with a link to episode 2, my first recording about the Eisenhower Matrix. So the summary from chapter 4 is, don't focus on being busy, focus on being productive. So once you have figured out what really matters for the success of your business, that core activity or task goes to the top of your success list. And they use the term success list, which is different than a to-do list. So the success list represents the pretty short, highly prioritized, most important and urgent task that you've identified and that you're focusing the greatest majority of your time and energy. So the second principle is, once you've figured out what really matters for the success of your business, and the Eisenhower Matrix can help you do that, then that core activity or task goes to the top of that success list. Third principle is say no, or at least not now, to anything else that you could work on until your most important work for the day is done. The final thought is, don't get trapped in the to-do list checkoff game. The truth is that things don't matter equally, and success is found in doing what matters most. All right. Well, thanks very much for watching this episode of Mr. Wizard's Workshop. If you haven't already registered for the weekly workshop, then I invite you to join me on my our productivity journey, and I'll put a link to the registration page in the description of this video. So have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you next week.